Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I bring you entrepreneurs, founders, thought leaders, executives, artists, you name it, across the world of crypto and blockchain, all around the world. And today I have two amazing guests. I usually have one amazing guest. Today I have two for your listening enjoyment. And this company and I were both at Consensus 2024 last week. Today I have Amy Kalnoki is the COO and co-founder, and Pat White, who's the CEO of Bitwave. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
You're very welcome. So I'll throw it up round robin. I'll ask you for the same question. Whoever wants to go first can field it. Both of your backgrounds. I'm interested in that. What are your backgrounds, and are they logical for what you're doing now?
That's a good question. Well, I'm happy to get started. My name is Pat. I'm the CEO of Bitwave. Thanks for having us on the show today. My background is I'm an engineer. So I got my first computer when I was like 3 years old, and I've been programming, maybe not since I was three, but not too far off of that. So I'm a very, very deep technologist. I love computers, and I got into crypto, and I went to school for computer engineering, and my whole career has been in enterprise software. But I got into crypto about 2010. This was the Bitcoin white paper hit Slashdot. And like, if you don't, Slashdot was a really early, they're still around, but they've kind of lost some of their luster. But if you think about like Hacker News, 20 years ago, Slashdot was the Hacker News of its time. And so the Bitcoin white paper made to the front page of Slashdot. And even back then, it was eliciting a lot of debate. I mean, Bitcoin wasn't the first ever digital currency. There was actually a couple of precursors to it that had been proposed, and Slashdot was the audience that knew that. And it was like, even back then, I guess we'll stick with the hipster theme. Even back then, there was a very hipster response to it of like, well, this currency that actually came before, that was called Bits, was one that came before, didn't work out. So why is this going to work out? Like, I knew about Bits before anyone else did. And so Bitcoin, I read the white paper. It immediately resonated with me. It was for me, I've never liked banks all that much. I don't know. I didn't grow up with like all the money in the world. So like, I've always had a mixed relationship with banks. Banks were, and so I read this paper that was like really anti-banking and anti-central finance and all this kind of stuff, and kind of got excited about it. So I started following crypto pretty carefully back then. Contributed some code to the Bitcoin Core node, and then I'll let Amy kind of pick up the story from there, because we started working on our first startup together not too long after that, actually.
Yeah. So, my background was also in enterprise software and SaaS startups. Pat and I actually have co-founded a few startups before together. The first one was in the enterprise collaboration space. And then we did one called Synata that was in the enterprise search space. So still like business B2B software. While we were working on that one, we had a couple other co-founders. That's when I learned about digital assets, actually from Pat, who, like he said, was passionate about crypto and blockchain and digital assets even back then. But that was more like 2016 timeframe, and it wasn't really the right time to start a business, a B2B software startup in this space. Like, the market just maybe wasn't there quite yet. So we kind of put a pin in it. We worked on our other startups. That last company that I mentioned was acquired by Cisco. We worked at Cisco for a while. And then when it was time to leave Cisco after a few years, it was more like 2018 timeframe. And then that was really the moment when we thought we could bring together our shared both backgrounds in enterprise B2B SaaS software and our personal passions for crypto. So I really do think that our backgrounds were a logical starting off point for the company that we've created, because from day one, the mission of Bitwave has been to help enable digital assets for enterprise, and we kind of just started the company by brainstorming a list and asking ourselves the question, like, what will businesses need when they start transacting in crypto and digital assets? And day one, they need to account for anything that's moving in and out of the business, any asset, crypto included. So that's kind of what we set off to build.
You both just reminded me of something that I was in AIG until 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear about Bitcoin until after I was out of AIG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And even today there's still this hesitance in some of the big industries, the big financial institutions to get too deep into crypto. And it's, yeah, I think it's a funny thing to watch from the outside where it's like all of us that are in crypto are just so passionate about it. We see so much potential and power there. And you're like, well, wait, you're not like, Mr. Banker, you're not excited about this. Like, this isn't, you're not either terrified that it's going to completely change the nature of your business or super excited that you can rewrite the rules of the financial system and make, empower people and all these other things. Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting, but they're being disrupted by it the whole time, you know. So I want to find out, what Bitwave is all about and what you excel at.
Yeah. Ames, you want to?
Yeah, really where Bitwave excels is with any business that has a high volume of digital asset transactions, they need a way to comprehensively track that from an accounting, bookkeeping, tax tracking, compliance, revenue recognition kind of perspective. So we make a full platform, a suite of tools that allows bookkeepers or CPAs or ops and finance folks at companies, give them the software tools that they need to keep the books and records that they're obligated to keep as a business, when they have that high volume of digital asset transaction.
Yeah, and the way I like to talk about it is like the day that a company decides to bring digital assets onto their balance sheet. So, there's this day where that happens. The CTO is all excited. They have a new project idea for a token or some sort of digital asset system, or they want to like get paid quicker, whatever it is. One of our clients, just total aside here, went from onboarding a vendor to having a vendor completely paid in less than like 30 minutes, with the full amount of a vendor being paid. And I don't know, for people that aren't in the B2B payment space, that doesn't seem like a lot. But if you think about doing that in the olden days of like banks, in order to get paid as a company like Bitwave, we have to register with your payment system. We get an ACH deposit that's a penny test. That takes 24 to 36 hours to finish. We go back, we put it in, and then you initiate the transfer, and then 3 days later you get it. Like the first time you get a payment, it is not unusual for that to be a 3, 4, 5 day process to get paid. And we had one of our customers did that in this was yesterday. It was soup to nuts, like less than 45 minutes to get that done. So it's, if you're not, we sort of said like there's all these reasons people get excited about digital assets, but the same time, all of those things create problems for your CFO's office. So the CIO, the CTO, they all get super excited. The CFO suddenly has a bunch of new reporting, compliance, data tracking, accounting, tax, financial operations, and FP&A problems. They go from one single currency like USD to thousands and ETH and Bitcoin and different assets that all have weird accounting rules that go along with them, and that they have to be able to track the addresses they're sending to and who they're interacting with, and make sure they're compliant with all these new treasury regulations and all of that. So where Bitwave really came in is that we wanted to help that CFO. So everything up and down the CFO stack, from FP&A through to just their basic accounting and tax, they can, Bitwave can basically help them out with that the day that they decide to bring digital assets onto their balance sheet.
That's good. So people think about it ahead of time. As a project manager in my corporate days, we used to get, the areas of the business used to buy software packages. Hey, we bought this. And we're like, oh, okay, now we got to get to work.
Yep. Now the real work starts.
Yeah. So one of the key themes last week at Consensus, and it kind of like was only the key theme during the week because something happened right afterwards, was this this BIP 20 let's talk about those approvals first. The BIP 21 approval by Congress, which was then vetoed by Biden, right? BIP 20, and then the SEC recent ETFs, which we'll get into afterwards. I want to find out about BIP and FIT and all these acronym names first. What you think will be the impact of those and what the future of crypto looks like in the US?
Yes, it was a busy week, and I got this wrong. Like last week, as I was talking about this, I screwed this all up because there were so many different bills that went back and forth over this. So it's important to kind of list them out really deeply here. So there was a bill that was passed by Congress, which actually did pass both houses of Congress, which was I'm looking it up really quickly so I don't screw it up here. Which was there's basically two bills that went out. Hold on a sec, pull it out here. I just want to be very, very clear on this. So one actually passed the House entirely, and that one was specifically around this idea of rolling back the guidance for how SAB 121 works. There was SEC guidance that went out that was specifically so a long time ago the SEC issued guidance called SAB 121. You might have heard of it. What it essentially did was, in addition to kind of kneecapping institutional adoption of digital assets, or I guess as an effect of that, what it basically did is it said that if you were holding crypto assets on your balance sheet on behalf of a customer, you had to hold them as a liability. This is completely contrary to how custodianship works for most assets in the world. So Jamil, if you're custodying gold for me, let's say you start up a company that just holds on to bricks of gold for your customers. You don't do anything with it. You just put it in a vault and you're custodying it for me. You do not need to report that as a liability because you are not holding that on your balance sheet. You are providing a service, which is custodying this asset. I am not giving you the gold and you do not owe it back to me. You are holding it for me, but the entire time that you hold it, it is in fact my own property. So what SAB 121 did is it carved out an exception for digital assets that said that's actually not how it works for digital assets. So if you are a bank and you bring digital assets and you are custodying them for your assets, you actually have to hold them as a liability. That might not seem like a big deal. And honestly, like most people, it's a very technocratic reason why it matters. For most people, it's not a big deal. Like if you start a company purely to custody digital assets, it does not matter if you're holding as a liability or off balance sheet. Totally doesn't matter at all. It's purely a financial wrangling. Where it matters is if you are a regulated bank. The way regulated banks, one of the metrics for regulated banks is that they are judged by the health of their balance sheet. And the way you judge the health of the balance sheet is you look at their liabilities versus their deposits. And so regulated banks tend to have a actually determined ratio of liabilities to held assets that they cannot exceed. So if I'm Bank of America and you're expecting that I have 10% of my assets, I physically have 10% reserves. If I add $1 billion, well, Bank of America would have to be like $1 trillion. But if I add $1 trillion of crypto, I suddenly have completely blown up my balance sheet, and I literally have to like sell a bunch of assets, call a bunch of loans in order for my ratio, my debt to my ratio that I need to maintain to be maintained there. And so what SAB 121 did is effectively made it impossible for traditional financial institutions like banks and investment banks and a lot of the companies that are out there to hold digital assets on their books because it would blow up their traditional banking practice. It created this tension between digital assets and the banking practice. There was then a separate bill, which was the FIT 21 bill, which was not concerned with SAB 121. It was concerned with the regulatory guidance of what agencies deal with what particular assets. And so this has been needed for years. So like one of the things I love to talk about in this is like government agencies. We think of them as, I don't know, big bag wolves or what, like they're these big amorphous things that just exist out there. Like they're not. Like government agencies there's a person that runs the agency. There's a budget that gets allocated. Like they are everyone's interpretation of an organization that we all live with every single day, a company, an organization. And like any organization, they're self-perpetuating. I mean, at the end of the day, no one wants to work somewhere that they then say, okay, guys, next year we're going to shut down this company and we're all not going to have jobs. Like that's just not how human beings work. And so government organizations are self-perpetuating that same way. And so one of the things about government organizations is that they are not incentivized. They are not incentivized to have clear delineation of responsibilities unless they are given that by Congress. And so so if you think about the different agencies that potentially have purview over crypto are the SEC, the IRS, the FTC, the Consumer Protection Bureau a little bit, And there's even a couple of other ones that kind of sneak in here, CFTC, Commodities Futures Trading Commission, that all kind of have purview over different parts of it. Well, if the lines aren't clearly drawn, that is in the best interest of the agencies, because that means that someone does something wrong. Sam Bankman-Fried goes out there and does something wrong. 3 or 4 different agencies can all go after him for what he did. Like, he goes and he issues an FTX token. The SEC can go after him for unregistered security. The CFTC can go after him for unregistered commodities, or go after FTX as an unregistered commodities broker. There's this deep incentive for government agencies to not self-delineate clearly the lines in the sand for what they regulate for what they don't. So FIT 21 was a bill that one of the main focuses was actually very, very, very clearly delineating, what's a security, what's not, who has purview, what's a commodity, what's not, who has purview over commodities, who has purview over securities, who doesn't have purview over anything, stuff like that. And it basically came out and said very clearly, it said decentralized, fully decentralized networks like Ethereum and Bitcoin, where you have, high decentralization, no central player controlling it. They are commodities. They fall under the commodities and futures. And I might have gotten one of the agencies wrong here. Please forgive me. But there's this idea that, they fall under commodities. Securities that are not decentralized. So assets that have one body that controls them and that were pitched as profits earning securities, they fall under the SEC. So what it did is it sought to clearly delineate lines. It passed the House with a 71 with a bipartisan majority. So 71 Democrats came over to vote for it, which is spectacular. But in many ways, it was a show vote, because there's no way that this is going to get to the Senate. And even if it got to the Senate, there's no way it would get back to the House for the ratification, just because out of committee there. Because there's a whole bunch of other bills that are coming through. We have a defense spending bill, and all these other bills are coming through, and Congress shuts down entirely to go campaign in about a month and a half. So Congress evaporates in the U.S. To go campaign in as soon as September rolls around. So it was a show bill. It had no chance of really getting out this year, but a lot of us kind of think that maybe it might get out next year and have a real chance to be evaluated. So that was the regulatory. Yeah, sorry, Ames.
And I was just going to add, I think it is a positive thing anytime you see bipartisan bills in the crypto space. I know, Pat, you feel the same. I think it's unfortunate that digital assets have become politicized, really, because I, like Pat, believe so strongly in their potential to help bring the financial industry into the modern era. And so it is really reassuring to me when I see some bipartisan efforts and collaboration in the space.
I think it's positive to see bipartisan collaboration after many years of fighting. So that's
I couldn't even. It's funny that you say it, because I was trying to rack my brain to think of the last major bipartisan bill. I mean, it's been a hot minute. We don't have a lot of bipartisan bills, and this is a funny one. It's a funny one to say that the way I like to think about it is there's 5 million single issue voters out there. The stat that I've seen is there's 5 million single issue voters that they don't care about anything besides crypto. And it's a really true thing. That's if you're a Democrat or Republican, you look at that, you're like, well, I don't care. This stuff doesn't matter to me either. Why would I not go after those 5 million voters? So
I voted libertarian the past 2 presidential elections, and I'm voting independent this year. So, that's just me. I'm the minority, but hey, might not be a minority by November.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think about when I think about banks, I think about Silvergate, and I think about the banks in Silicon Valley that failed. And, at AIG, my job was to build the CCAR platform. So, I'm looking at these bank stress tests, and I'm wondering, crypto to me should be an asset. It is an asset, and a deposit, but definitely not a liability. So once that goes through, and I don't know if President Biden vetoed it, but when and if it goes through, what do you see as the potential for the future of the crypto industry in the U.S.?
Ames, you want to talk about the future here?
Yeah, I mean, I think in order to get institutional and enterprise adoption, real big publicly traded companies and highly regulated financial institutions to adopt digital assets fully and for them to fully reach their potential, you need clear regulatory guidance. Businesses don't like to operate in a gray area. No one wants to go to jail. Your financial officer doesn't want to go to jail. Like, no one wants to break the law. And so until we have that framework that people feel confident in, and we get out of this period of this like ever shifting window of regulations and guidance, we won't see the full potential of digital assets in the US realized, because people don't want to operate in the gray area. They're going to move to a country or a jurisdiction and domicile there where they have a clear framework to work in, because no one wants the rules changing on them midway if you're building a company and a business. So I think that it's time for clear regulation and guidance, and then the US will continue to be the hotbed of innovation that it always has been.
Yeah, and the way I've heard this described that I really like, this was a very clever person said this, I did not come up with this, but was that, there's basically three types of risks that businesses take in America. And America is still, for the good parts or bad parts of America, we still are pretty good at capitalism. It's one of our specialties. There's three types of risks that the businesses in America think about. They think about market risk, technology risk, and regulatory risk. So market risk is new Coke, right? Like, we're gonna launch a product and see if people buy it, and that's let's see what happens. And American businesses are exceptionally good at dealing with market risk. It is what we do. It's like it is the core of American business. Technology risk is a middle ground. That's to say, like, that's like Tesla. Or SpaceX is a better one, when they said, we're going to start a company and we think that in 20 years or in 10 years or 15 years, we can launch a booster and re-land it. And that's how we get our competitive advantage. And we're pretty good at that. Like, that's a middle ground for companies. Like, some businesses are great at it. Some businesses are terrible at it, but like, it's a middle ground. Across the board, American businesses hate regulatory risk because it means something can change. Trump can get elected or Biden can get elected, and suddenly the regulatory posture you're in is suddenly not the one that you thought you were in, and you've completely changed. So businesses hate regulatory risk. It creates risk to executives because they can go to jail. It creates risk to your business because it means that you're privy to the whims of politics and the whims of voters, which are, that's a rough place to be. And so where we are with crypto is we've kind of conquered the major technology risks. There's obviously, we've gone through all the market risks. There's great things still to be done, but this regulatory risk that American companies hate is still floating out there. And until we truly get rid of that from a overall perspective, like, we're just going to still be in this holding pattern, kind of fighting the good fight, but not seeing Coca-Cola or Walmart get deep into digital assets, because there is no world where they're willing to sacrifice $1 trillion business or $1 billion, whatever Walmart is now, for a $200 million crypto project.
I'm trying to think back to New Coke. That was pretty bad.
I don't know if I ever had New Coke.
I actually tried it.
I had Pepsi Clear. That was the one that made it into my bubble. It was terrible. Like, I didn't like it at all.
Back in club days, I used to drink Jolt.
Jolt, oh man, Jolt was the best. Yeah, that was mine as well. That was, computer programmers lived on Jolt.
Yeah. So, moving on from those accounting bulletins and the vetoes and the impact that we have ETFs now for Ethereum and ETFs for Bitcoin. What do they both mean for enterprise crypto adoption, and what other ETFs do you think will come down the pipe that will shape enterprise adoption?
Yeah, Ames, you want to?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the ETH one is coming, right? And everyone's really excited about that. Every time I see a report on the volume of money moving in and out of the ETFs, like billions of dollars a week, it's real money. It shows what Pat was just saying, like the market is there. I think after Bitcoin and ETH, it might be a longer time before we see other coins, tokens, and assets in one of these types of funds, but you never know.
Yeah, I think Garlinghouse did a speech. Brad Garlinghouse did a speech there where he said, of course, XRP, Cardano, and I think Solana, he said, might be possibilities. I don't know what the appetite would be for enterprises for those three. What do you think?
You know, I think what we're going to start to see is probably some baskets pop up that are kind of like holding the blue chip tokens. I think that's I'd be surprised if we go from like Bitcoin to ETH to like and we just sort of knock out ETFs for each of the major coins. My kind of thinking of this is the next big thing will be a basket of blue chips.
Hmm.
Now, that's obviously an issue, but that's because I think it's the market for individual assets is a little bit tougher as you get away from ETH and Bitcoin, but the market for either blue chips in general, which might include like Ripple and all those, or ETH with staking yields and rewards, which is the one that really is super interesting. Because right now, it's not actually okay to do a staking reward. The current ETFs, there's a lot of debate here. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of debate here. But the current thing is it's not actually okay to do the staking rewards off of the ETH ETFs and then earn a yield that way. So that's gonna be one of the things that has to happen because you put 100,000 ETH in one place, you can't not stake that. That's crazy to not stake that. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So like we need to figure out how you actually put that ETH to work when you get it in one single place, and that's a big open question on the ETF side.
I'm trying to think here. It used to be where like the only option was to buy an ETH node. And now you have staking, you have restaking. There's lots of other things. There's liquid staking.
Yep.
How should enterprises look at these options, for their business needs?
It depends on the kind of business. I would say most businesses that are holding a good chunk of ETH should certainly be doing something like liquid staking, which is that you're paying a fee for someone else to run it. If you can make it work, there's companies like Figment and Coinbase Cloud that will essentially allow you to stake with your assets on their hardware, and they'll run it for you like that. So at some point, you have a significant enough set of ETH, it becomes economical for you to run your own nodes. Running nodes or not, I run a node on my desktop here actually, and it runs for pennies of electricity, and I had to upgrade to a higher bandwidth package. So let's call it like $20. But the ETH node itself only cost me about about $500 to buy the physical hardware for. So it's not that bad. It's actually not that expensive getting the hardware for ETH. There's a couple of blockchains that are more expensive, but ETH and a few other ones are actually not that bad at all. So you can, as a business, if you have IT tech expertise, you can certainly do it. If you want to keep more of your yield and you can commit to one company, you can go with the Figments of the world. And if you want to have the easiest ins and outs and the least amount of like wrangling, liquid staking is a good option, but obviously it presents the biggest counterparty risk. That's always something to kind of keep in mind.
Got it. Cool. Okay, thank you. Just trying to make hesitant to what is going on now. This post FTX world. Before it was easy, put
Yeah.
your money in bankruptcy companies, and before they become bankrupt, and they'll give you a yield. Now it's very different.
Yep, exactly. And the other thing that's obviously changed in the world is interest rates. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like interest rates going up to 7% has completely changed. We wouldn't have what was the company that did this bit that went out of business. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on it because I had some money in them.
A block fee?
Block fee. Yeah, there you go. Like we wouldn't have, block fee wouldn't have happened if it would have been very, very different today when you have 8% interest rates. Like they never would have gotten the traction they got. So
Yeah.
I have some friends in my town who are trying to sell their houses, and 7.5% is tough.
it's
So,
tough.
Huh.
And for a
um,
lot of us, it's the first time. Like I sort of joke. I was born in the mid '80s, and honestly, it's the first. There was a very brief period of like interest rate spikes in the '90s, but I was a kid. Like I didn't remember that. Like this is really the first time that an entire generation. I mean, honestly, arguably Gen X plus the millennials have actually had high interest rates. So we're relearning a lot of stuff that we kind of forgot about as a country, including like there's a reason that we had such low interest rates. Like low interest rates are great for the economy, for house buying, for all this kind of stuff. And it's interesting kind of relearning all that stuff.
yeah. I ask it because that brings me into my next question. Right, we have a new environment. It's high interest rates. It's new regulatory uncertainty. And amid that situation, what are some effective strategies for businesses to achieve compliance and mitigate future risks?
Use Bitwave.
Yeah.
Make it very, very
Um,
simple.
No, yeah. No, I would say to Pat's point, I mean, it takes multiple things. You need good advisors and experts in the space. A lot of professionals in the space have spent now years trying to understand that ever-shifting framework. I do think, to Pat's point, you need a good software system and internal controls as a company and as a business. Have a documented process of how you're going to do wallet management and things like that to make sure that you are staying compliant and that you are getting good advice and that you are automating it as much you can with a solid software system like Bitwave.
The main thing I often say here is don't not do it. Like you would not be, I mean, I would say you'd be surprised, but you definitely would not be surprised how many people in crypto we talked to that were like, wait, what do you mean accounting and tax? Like, I don't need to do any of that. Crypto doesn't matter. You don't need to account for it. And like, I'm like, well, that's one opinion, and I'm not going to argue with you, but the IRS will, and they'll haul your ass into court. Like, so it's one of those things that like do take it seriously. If you're a business and you want to be doing this, do take it seriously. Get ahead of it. Bring in software. Bring in Bitwave to do the work here, and we can actually help you make sure that you get started on the right foot.
Well, you do a little bit more than accounting and tax only. You empower efficient and secure digital asset management, right? So what are the benefits for them going with your platform, and in regards to efficiency?
Yeah. So we don't, yeah, and I'll make it clear, we don't do any custody. So we only do the financial reporting side of it. But a big part of that is, there's this idea that when you get, some of our customers have 10,000 wallets, and you just can't, you have to think about managing 10,000 wallets very, very, very differently. That's just as you start to scale and you have, developer wallets and treasury wallets and enterprise wallets and AR wallets. And, we'll have customers have a wallet for every person that pays them. You have to think about it very, very differently. You have to think about how you manage that differently, how you pull all the data together, how you automate tracking it. All that just becomes a completely different beast here. So that's where you really need Bitwave to basically enable that use case and enable you to do that all intelligently.
I'm going to recommend my corporate friends that I still haven't talked to them in years, but some of them, but to go with you guys because it sounds good to me.
I love it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I want to thank you very much. For talking to me today. I got a better understanding of what's going on now with the Congress and what you guys do. And I have one last question though. How can people find out more information about you, about Bitwave? How can they become customers? How can they empower their organizations to be efficient? How can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So come to our website, bitwave.io. That's bitwave.io. You can also reach out to info@bitwave.io. We're online on LinkedIn, Bitwave platform, on Twitter. Please reach out. We'd love to chat with you, hear about what you're doing in digital assets and see if there's a way we can help. And I'm online at Amy Kalnoki on Telegram, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. And Pat, same for you, just your first name.
I'm at Pat White on Twitter, and I am on LinkedIn. I'm Patrick White on LinkedIn, and bitwave.io. Come and check us out. We'd love to talk to you.
Show you a demo of the product and connect. So thanks so much. It's been really fun.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Jamil.
Thank you.